water for 20 years for 400 people. Now, I've actually done the calculation. You take that many people, you take that many dollars, and figure out how much it is. It isn't that big of a number to give these people water. Lake Dam, you guys probably heard about this. We have a current gorge fault coming through here. This is called the Lake Isabella Dam, and this is the what they call the auxiliary dam. And again, we have a fault coming through here. Originally, they thought that fault was inactive, but it was 2 million years old. Turns out recently they found out that it's only about 2,000 or 3,000 years old, was the most recent movement. So, so that changes. If you're going to design something that's 2 million as opposed to 2,000 years old, 2,000 years geological wise is nothing, practically nothing. So you've got a fault going running through the auxiliary dam. If it has movement, that's going to cause movement in the dam. You also have these underlying soils here that are pretty much saturated because of the water, and there's a soil engineering failure mechanism called liquefaction. And basically what that means is you lose sands full of water and you shake it, and basically they settle in. Liquefaction means it goes to liquid and basically has no support. So it has at least a potential for here for loss of support. Right through here, if you see that little road going right through here, there's a tunnel underneath there called the Boreal conduit, and it goes to the Boreal Canal, and that goes over to a power plant. And it was put in back when this was built originally. But it turns out that the construction methods they use that were extremely poor. Almost no compaction, and so there's a seepage problem right there. I don't mind you guys going into this. Again, engineers love this stuff. Those are three of the big issues. The other big issue is right there. That's called a spillway. Now, I don't know if you know what a spillway means, but as your water in your dam goes up, if it gets too high, you didn't have a spillway, it'd go over the top and it'd wash the dam out. Well, we don't want that. So what you do is you put in a spillway so that when it gets up to a certain level, when the water goes out the spillway, it never gets high enough to wash out the dam. Well, the problem is that spillway isn't big enough. If we had as much rain as it is actually possible to come into Lake Isabella, the size of the spillway would not be adequate, and you would get overtopping the dam, and it would get washed out.
Tony, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How does our discussion of the Delta and the peripheral canal and earthquakes and the Lake Isabella issues, how does that tie into our transportation infrastructure issues?
What it does is this is just showing in general with all these other infrastructure issues how we've been addressing them in the past. We've been sort of kicking down and talk about kick things down the road, kick the can down the road. We've been kicking these cans down the road. We haven't been maintaining our structures, and we haven't been advancing them with our population or economic growth. So it's sort of the same package, the same effect. Our priorities are going areas other than our infrastructure and other than our transportation. So I'm not saying that other priorities aren't good. I mean, we have to have schools and and police and fire and all those other types of things. But for too long, our infrastructure, as you can see by those grades, has been ignored. Go ahead. So here's a picture of our being a landfill, and as you can see, we're not doing real well economically. Sort of a little gag picture, but anyway. The Vena landfill is over on the east side of town. It has a 35-year design life, which means we project with population increase and all that type of thing, that in 35 years, you'll have to go find another landfill. These are not cheap to build and maintain a landfill, and so it's very expensive to come back and find another one and build another one. And I would imagine, especially as the environmental restrictions are evolved, that it will be even more difficult than it was in this case. So, go ahead. So, please, pay your $4 a month and get a recycled trash can. I mean, they're talking about, making this free for everybody, but, I'm one of the 4 people on my street that recycle, and it's, you guys need to do this. We have to do this.
I think we're doing it, right?
They approved the next step, but it's not final yet.
Yeah, but so anyway, this, I mean, people don't do it because they think, oh gee, it's $4, I'll save myself $50 a year. Well, it's gonna hurt all of us, okay?
You know, residential waste is a small fraction.
Actually, it is, that's true.
Yeah.
It's.
They
it's
said if
primarily
it goes
commercial.
citywide, you know what you're talking about, citywide, it'll take us from recycling 61% to 65%.
Right, but anyway,
That's a drop
to
in the
me,
bucket.
I wanna do everything possible, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not where the focus should be. You know, the focus should be on the
You're right.
industrial waste.
You are, but I still.
By the way, this is refilled with tap water.
I appreciate that, but I do the same thing. So if we need good schools, obviously you come to this guy and he'll teach you how to have a good school. And then you go ahead, and then you have to have a good bus system, so you come to this lady. And she'll teach you how to get to, she'll show you how to get to this, how to get to school. Okay. And this guy will teach you when he has all kinds of numbers, he'll tell you how to do all the engineering, how to do all the calculations. But anyway, when we talk about Kern County roads, again, we're talking about maintenance. For several years, the Kern County road system has given no funding for maintenance for our roads. And that's because it is what's the word, Gene? Discretionary?
A low priority.
Well, it's discretionary. I mean, so much they have to spend for something else.
Oh, restricted funds.
And so they only have a little bit of fluff that they actually have control over. And so when the economy goes down, you lose that. And so bang, you get no maintenance. And so our roads are getting worse.
We talked about this a little bit before, and you touched it at the beginning of your lecture, that in 2009, the estimate was there was need for $2 trillion for infrastructure improvement. We already spent $1 trillion in stimulus. We haven't seen anything out of it.
Well, it's in my note there is about stimulus. All of our money here locally, stimulus money, went to replacing roads that we had, replacing White Lane out here. You saw all the work out there, all those roads out in the southwest. They're all 20 years old, 30 years old, and road wears out in 20, 30 years. When I design, as an engineer, I design a road, it has a 20-year design line. Okay, so it's been that long, we had to do that. And that's where our stimulus money went. So what else have I got up there? So again, we talk about maintenance, we've got these big deficits in our maintenance. And that's part of the money that we're not spending. So, 2005, traffic congestion costs us, what's that, $3.5 million? And, oh, I'm sorry, 3.5 million hours and $66 million. That's just in Bakersfield. So, that's the actual cost of congestion. Okay? So we have airports, and obviously our airport's in great shape. This is the spaceport out in Mojave, which is a great thing. Our new terminal, Meadows Airfield. Okay. This is the TRIP program. You're probably very much familiar with that. These are all the plans that they have out. This is Centennial, and they've got several options for that. That's very controversial. They've had some development up here on 178. They worked on 7th Standard. This is going to be a nice deal dealing with Rosedale Highway, which is one of our most congested areas. I don't know if any of you drive Rosedale Highway either in the morning or evening, but it's horrendous. And then right now here we're building West Side Freeway, and then we put in Mohawk, which is a very cool region. So that's what the TRIP program is. TRIP stands for Thomas Roads Improvement Projects, for program like Thomas is Bill Thomas, who was our congressman several years ago, and at the time he was the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, and so he was able to get a chunk of money for our freeways here in Bakersfield. So here's some of the projects. Again, this is 7th Standard Road. This is, I think that's Fairfax, and this is part of West Side Freeway. This is an interesting little newsletter that I get every day. Every day. This is yesterday's. And it talks about every one of these areas of infrastructure. There's transportation. dams. Boy, back when we were having those floods, I mean, that dam section was just pages and pages and pages. But if you go back and, I mean, you can look at this every day and you'll see infrastructure problems that are going on through the United States. And this is again, because we're not primarily because we're not maintaining. That's the big problem. We also have, there's some of these in here that are basically the IT things, and to me, that's one of the most scary things about it. Is because you have China and Russia have guys that are just dedicated to hacking into our corporations and our government websites to just either disrupt them or to steal information from us so that they don't have to do all the research and development to do something we've already figured out how to do. In other words, that's why the Russians' space shuttle looks like our space shuttle. You know, and you'll see that in other areas. They take our information, they don't have to spend all the money with our beautiful education people.